In the peaceful forest of Greenwood, where golden sunlight streamed through tall oak trees and birds filled the morning with cheerful songs, lived a small white rabbit named Oliver. Unlike the other rabbits, Oliver wasn't the fastest or the strongest. His legs were shorter, his jumps were smaller, and he was always the last to arrive wherever the young rabbits gathered. Many animals laughed at him and told him he would never become a great runner. Their words hurt, but instead of giving up, Oliver chose to work harder. Every morning before sunrise, while the forest was still quiet, he practiced running along narrow woodland trails, jumping over fallen logs, climbing rocky hills, and crossing tiny streams. At first, he stumbled, slipped on wet rocks, and fell more times than he could count. Each fall left him tired and discouraged, but every time he stood back up, brushed the dirt from his fur, smiled to himself, and whispered, "One more try." Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Slowly, his legs became stronger, his confidence grew, and the fear that once filled his heart began to disappear. Then, one bright spring morning, the wise old owl announced the Great Forest Race, the biggest event in Greenwood, where every animal could compete. The race would pass through steep hills, rushing rivers, thick forests, and muddy trails before ending beneath the ancient maple tree on the highest hill. Excited animals rushed to sign their names, but when Oliver quietly added his own, laughter echoed through the crowd. "You'll never finish," some rabbits mocked. "Why embarrass yourself?" others said. Their words planted seeds of doubt in Oliver's mind. That evening, while sitting alone beside a peaceful river, wondering if they were right, an old turtle slowly walked over. The turtle had quietly watched Oliver train for months. Seeing the sadness in the young rabbit's eyes, he gently said, "Winning isn't always about crossing the finish line first. The greatest victory is refusing to quit when everyone expects you to." Those simple words stayed in Oliver's heart. On race day, the entire forest gathered to watch. The owl raised his wing, the crowd fell silent, and with a loud call, the race began. Deer sprinted ahead, foxes leaped gracefully over logs, wolves charged through the forest, and Oliver quickly found himself near the back. But instead of worrying about everyone else, he focused only on taking one step after another. When the racers reached a steep, rocky hill, many slipped on loose stones, but Oliver remembered all the mornings he had practiced climbing similar paths and carefully made his way upward. At the rushing river, while stronger animals hesitated, Oliver confidently hopped across the stepping stones he had trained on for months. Slowly, he began passing racers who had once laughed at him, proving that patient preparation often beats natural talent. Just when the finish line seemed within reach, dark clouds gathered above the forest and heavy rain began pouring down. The trail became slippery, branches fell from trees, and thick mud covered the path. One by one, exhausted animals stopped running. Some sat beside the trail, while others turned back, believing they could never finish. Oliver tried to keep moving, but suddenly he slipped and fell hard into the muddy ground. His body ached, his legs trembled with exhaustion, and for a moment he lay completely still. The voices of those who had doubted him echoed in his mind. "You'll never make it. You can't do it." It would have been easy to stay there and give up. But then he remembered the old turtle's gentle voice. The greatest victory is refusing to quit. Taking a deep breath, Oliver slowly pushed himself back onto his feet. Covered in mud, soaked by the rain, and completely exhausted, he chose to take one more step, then another and another. Soon the rain stopped, the clouds parted, and warm sunlight broke through, lighting the final hill where the ancient maple tree stood. Crowds of animals gathered near the finish line began cheering loudly, encouraging the little rabbit who had refused to surrender. Oliver wasn't the first racer to arrive, and he wasn't the second either. But with one final leap, he crossed the finish line. The entire forest erupted into applause. The wise owl walked over and smiled proudly. "Today, you taught us something more important than winning," he said. "Perseverance is stronger than talent. Determination is greater than natural ability. And true courage is continuing when every part of you wants to stop." Even the rabbits who had once laughed stepped forward and apologized, admitting they had been wrong. From that day on, whenever young animals felt discouraged, they no longer remembered the fastest runner in Greenwood. Instead, they remembered Oliver, the little rabbit who stood up after every fall and kept moving forward. His story spread throughout the forest, inspiring generations to believe that success doesn't belong only to the strongest or the fastest. It belongs to those who refuse to give up, no matter how difficult the journey becomes. The moral of the story is simple but powerful. Never let failure, fear, or the opinions of others decide your future. Every small step, every setback, and every moment of persistence brings you closer to your dreams. Winners are not those who never fall. They are the ones who always rise again.